Okay. Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And good day and good evening to all our online participants. Thank you for being a part of today's gathering. My name is Nong. I serve as the Executive Director of the Institute for China American Studies based here in Washington, D.C. It's my great honor and privilege to welcome you all to ICAS 2024 Annual Conference. This year's annual conference is for us particularly significant because we not only convene here to discuss the very critical issues shaping the U.S. China relations, but also to celebrate the 10th years anniversary of the Institute for China American Studies. Thank you for being with us. And thank you. Thank you. 10 years ago, ICAS was established with a bold vision to foster a dialogue, promote understanding, and offer insightful, policy-relevant research on one of the world's most critical bilateral relations. Today, as we celebrate this milestone, we take great pride in the progress we have achieved today and the strides we continue to make. Our efforts have sought to enrich discussions, bridge diverse perspectives, and contribute meaningfully to addressing many of the global issues and challenges in an increasingly interconnected world. Over the past 10 years, the U.S. China relations has undergone profound transformation, swaying between cooperation and competition. In this evolving dynamics, the need for informed engagement, grounded in a rigorous analysis, has become even more evident than ever. From maritime studies to trade to technology to science to climate and beyond, ICAS remains committed to providing a platform for a thoughtful and balanced discourse. The theme of this year's annual conference, Trump's second term, whether U.S. China Relations Prosper or Stumble or Muddle Through, reflects our mission to address the critical issues shaping our shared future. I'm confident that today's discussion, guided by distinguished experts, will yield valuable insights and actionable recommendations for policymakers and stakeholders across the both sides of the Pacific. I want to take this moment to express our sincere appreciation to our co-organizers, the National Institute for South China Sea Studies and the Carter Center, the Beijing Club for International Dialogue, and the Institute for China-Europe Studies. This conference is further enriched by our distinguished panelists and moderators who are prominent figures from academic, government, and industry. Your expertise will drive dynamic, engaging discussion across our thoughtfully curated panels. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the efforts from our delegate ICAS team, we're a very small team, and our board members, partners, and supporters. Your efforts and belief in our mission have brought us to where we are today. So as we celebrate this milestone of the 10th anniversary, we not only reflect on our achievement, but also reaffirm our commitment to the world that lies ahead. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. Shicun, who is going to give his opening remark. Dr. Wu served as the chair of the ICAS Advisory Board, and he's the founding president of the National Institute for South China Sea Studies. And he's a leading expert on maritime studies, particularly on the issue of South China Sea. Dr. Wu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Nong. Great. Good morning. 大家早上好。去文心公司，respectful Minister 去文心 many old friends I met here and also new friends. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and friends, it's my great honor to address you at the ICAS 2024 annual conference Dr. Nong just mentioned, particularly as we explore such a pressing, multifaceted question, the future of China-U.S. relations in what many are calling the Trump 2.0 era. Over the past 10 years, when ICAS was established in November 2014, here many friends I would like to name them Dr. Mark Swain, Yahweh, Mr. Golden Houlden, and anyone else who participated since the very beginning. I did mention, and I myself, since the very beginning, consecutively 10 years for attending the annual conference of ICAS. So the China-U.S. relations has undergone seismic shifts from the cooperation spirit of earlier economic engagement to the escalating tensions during the trade war, and from cooperation, collaboration on global challenges like climate change to strategic competition in technology and security. The relationship between China and the United States has been dynamic and at times deeply fraught. What stands out most is the increasing securitization of bilateral relations between China and the United States. Economic interdependence, once seen as a stabilizing fact, has now been framed through the lens of national security. The rivalry has extended into the realms of AI, semiconductors, and supply chain control, reflecting the broader geopolitical competition. As someone who devoted years to maritime and geopolitical research, I have observed how disputes in regions like the South China Sea became proxies for broader competition. Yet, even during the periods of heightened tension, there have been moments of cooperation, such as the joint declaration on climate change in 2021, that remind us of what is possible when mutual interests align. The upcoming Trump administration brings both uncertainty and familiarity from my personal perspectives. His America First policies, focusing on economic decoupling and withdrawal from multilateral institutions, will likely intensify. For China, this could mean navigating an even more challenging global environment driven by the United States. However, the future can not be solely defined by competition. The sheer scale of interdependence between China and the United States, economically, environmentally, and even global governance, necessitates dialogue. So my hope is that both sides, China and the United States, recognize that while competition is inevitable, outright confrontation is not. We must explore pathways to manage differences constructively, whether through trade negotiations, crisis management mechanisms, particularly in the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea. Just yesterday morning, I discussed the South China Sea issue with my counterpart in CSIS. We joined, some common grounds on the South China Sea issue, particularly in China, United States, in the next administration. If we couldn't be able to manage well, there will be confrontation or crisis management escalated to the confrontation. So all joint efforts on global issues like human health and climate change. 2024 marks the 10th anniversary of ICAS founding. ICAS has always been a bridge of facilitating dialogue and fostering mutual understanding between academics of both countries. Through its research, academic events like this ICAS annual conference and the publications, ICAS provides a unique platform where different ideas, opinions are exchanged, and the policy suggestions are discussed and analyzed in a candid and in-depth manner. As a think tank leader myself, I know the value of what ICAS does, creating space for nuanced conversations in an era of rising nationalism and declining trust. The role of think tanks is more important than ever. ICAS' commitment to promoting balanced, mutual understanding-based discussions has made it a special bridge for people-to-people exchanges of U.S. China relations, like today's event. I firmly believe that academic exchanges can and should continue now more than ever. At a time when official dialogues might be either suspended or stalled due to some political reasons, if we lacked the confrontations caused by the August 2022 House Speaker Pelosi Nancy visited Taiwan, and February 2023 Blue accident. So the Shicun dialogue mechanism may be suspended or cancelled. So academic channels, in this sense, serve as a critical backdoors for communication and can be sustained without thinking of a political atmosphere of two sides. These exchanges foster mutual understanding, even personal friendship between us. So here, lots of friends. We enjoyed our personal friendship more than 10 years. So these mechanisms allow experts to pick up complex issues free of political constraints. So I would like to give you two successful examples, track two dialogue. One is Steve and I, Mr. Steve Houlden, the president of U.S. National Committee on China-U.S. Relations. In October 2024, we could initiate a track two dialogue between China and the United States on maritime issues and international. Another track two dialogue between my newly established institute, Huayang, and Pacifian, Professor Eric is here. Yeah, Eric. Since last year, last June, I went to Boulder, Colorado, and this year's February, they came to me in Sanya, Hainan, the second time track two dialogue, and just last month, we went to Springs, Colorado for this year's track two dialogue between Huayang and Pacifian. And we planned to next year track two dialogue in Haikou, the capital city of Hainan, where I'm working. So track two dialogue mechanisms are important for the people-to-people exchanges. So furthermore, these academic exchanges inspire the next generation of scholars and policymakers who will shape our shared future between China and the United States. Cutting these ties wouldn't only impoverish our intellectual landscapes, but also risk deepening misunderstandings and miscalculations. Drawing from my research background, I have often looked at the South China Sea as a microcosm of China-US dynamics, a space both competition and potential cooperation. The region, the South China Sea, illustrates the perils of a zero-sum approach, but also offers lessons in restraint and diplomacy. Similarly, I believe that the broader U.S.-China relationship must be guided by pragmatism and the recognition of shared responsibilities, whether it's combating climate change, stabilizing the global economy, or addressing regional conflicts. Both nations have much to gain from working together, and even more loss if we fail. As we ponder whether China-US relations under Trump 2.0 will prosper, suffer, or muddle through, one thing is clear: the path forward is not preordained. It will depend on the choices we make, choices informed by dialogue, understanding, and the willingness to find common ground. Now, finally, let's, as scholars and policy analysts, continue to play our part in shaping this relationship, ensuring it serves not just the interests of our two nations, but of the whole world at large. Before I conclude my remarks, may I take this opportunity to thank you all for your valuable support to ICAS, and I hope you could continue such kind of special contributions to U.S.-China relations by track two mechanisms like ICAS. So with that, I'll just stop there. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wu, for your kind words about the conference, about ICAS, and thank you for your willingness to share your experience and perspective on the U.S.-China exchange, particularly through the track two that a lot of people are involved. Now, please join me in welcoming Minister Chu Wenxing from the Embassy of People's Republic of China in the United States to deliver his keynote address. And the keynote address will be moderated by Professor Gordon Houlden, a good friend of ICAS for many years. And he is the Director Emeritus of the China Institute at University of Alberta in Canada. I give the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nong. We are very privileged today to have Minister Cho from the PRC Embassy. He's recently arrived in Washington and arriving at a very important time on the cusp of a new administration. Minister, just a few things about him. Minister Chu Wenxing began his career abroad in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Canberra, Australia. He's had a very distinguished career, particularly in the management of relations with North America and Oceania. He returned from Canberra. He took on progressive roles of increasing responsibility, including Deputy Division Director, Counselor in both the Department of North American and Oceania Affairs and the Department of International Organizations and Conferences. He then served as Counselor in the Department of North American and Oceania Affairs before advancing to the position of Deputy Director General of the same department, a position he held between 2020 and 2024 before coming to Washington a few months ago. Minister Cho was born in Anhui Province and is a university graduate in China. I have so many questions I'd like to pose to you, Minister Cho. So many, we have limited time, and I want to make sure we give an opportunity to our distinguished audience to pose questions as well. But I might begin. Trade is important. I'm going to ask, what do you think is the potential for resuming high-level trade negotiations with the Trump administration? What are the prospects, do you think, for U.S.-China trade looking towards January of next year?
Thank you, Mr. Houlden, for your kind words. Of course, you just get straight to the question, the Q&A session. And I think according to the arrangement, I will have a brief remark. But of course, I would like to to answer your question.
Please begin with your remarks, Mr. Cho, and then we'll go to the questions. Thank you.
But I believe that your question is, right to the point. That is I think the most, most interested, question, among the audiences. But I will take your advice. I will just say a few words on as the brief remark. Mr. Houlden and respectful Chairman Wu Shicun and ladies and gentlemen, friends, actually, just as Mr. Houlden said, I'm a newcomer in DC. I just arrived here 4 months ago. And before I came here, I have been working on China-US desk for the past 14 years. Of course, sometimes I went to the Department of International Organization and was responsible for China and Australia and New Zealand affairs. I have to admit that to work on China, Australia, and China-New Zealand relations is a much easier job for me. And some of my colleagues, when they became aware of my assignment in DC, some of them, really showed some, empathy towards me. But I'm willing to take this challenge because I know that this relationship between China and the US is one of the most important relationships in the world. That's why, I know, the responsibility is there and someone has to take it. And I would be like, to be the one. And of course, today it is my great pleasure to attend the 2024 annual conference and the ICAS 10th anniversary. And I want to applaud ICAS's tireless efforts in promoting mutual understanding and common interests between our two countries. It is the right thing to do. And of course, it is not an easy thing to do. Especially, it is more difficult to have been doing it for the past 10 years. So I do want to, extend my regards to ICAS for your efforts. And nowadays, China and the US relationship is again at a crossroads. And where is it heading? I think it is the question among, many observers. And to that question, I do believe that even 100, people might provide 120 answers, because someone might share 1, 2, or even more answers based on different scenarios. But to challenge the government, I just want to share with you our position is consistent, and it is very simple, which could be summarized into 4 unchanges, as President Xi Jinping put it. First, China's goal of stable, healthy, and sustainable China-US relationship remains unchanged. To be frank, the primary aspiration and the mission of the Communist Party of China is to seek happiness for the Chinese people and rejuvenation for the Chinese nation, to deliver on the plan of the third plenary session of the 20th Central Committee of the CPC to further deepen reform comprehensively and to advance Chinese modernization and to create a better life for the 1.4 billion plus Chinese people. China needs a favorable external environment. Of course, a sound China-US relationship is an important part of that external environment. The history demonstrates China and the US stand to gain from cooperation and lose from confrontation. China has no intention to challenge or replace the US. Instead, China is willing to be the partner. The US side, we believe, needs to adopt a right perception of China and China-US relations. The zero-sum mentality and the idea of outcompeting China should be abandoned. It serves the US own interests to work with China in the same direction and explore the right way for the two major countries to get along with each other in the new era. Second, China's commitment to mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and mutually beneficial cooperation as principles of handling China-US relationship remains unchanged. There are certain rules for major countries to get along with each other. For China and the US, mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, mutually beneficial cooperation, these are the experience from the past 45 years of China-US diplomatic relations. That they are what we can learn from the great power conflicts in history, and they should be pursued as the right direction for both sides. Let me explain a little bit. Mutual respect. The two sides need to respect each other's social system and development path, respect each other's core interests and major concerns, and respect each other's right to development. Peaceful coexistence. That means never to seek conflict or confrontation. A war between China and the US would be a catastrophe to both countries and the world. Mutually beneficial cooperation. Here, I just want to highlight, in the past, I normally interpreted into win-win cooperation. But I understand some of my US colleagues told me win-win cooperation means China wins twice. So I changed the interpretation as mutually beneficial cooperation. So the two sides actually should expand the list of cooperation and make a big pie that benefits both countries. There are broad prospects for cooperation on areas such as trade, agriculture, counter narcotics, law enforcement, and public health, and of course, as well as on global issues of climate change, artificial intelligence, as well as other international hotspots. The world now has enough turbulence and conflicts. So when China and the US work together, both countries and the world will be safer and more prosperous. Third, China's position of resolutely safeguarding our sovereignty, security, and development interests remains unchanged. Contradictions and differences between two big countries like China and the US are only natural, but the key is constructive management. The One China principle and the three China-US joint communiques are the political foundation of China-US relations. They must be observed. The Taiwan question, democracy and human rights, China's path and system, and China's development right are four red lines for China. They must not be challenged. These are the most important guardrails and safety nets for China-US relations. Fourth, China's desire to carry forward the traditional friendship between the Chinese and American peoples remains unchanged. The hope of the China-US relationship lies in the people. The foundation is in our society. The future depends on the youth, and its vitality comes from exchanges at subnational levels. The two sides should build bridges of bilateral people-to-people exchanges. Last year, President Xi Jinping announced the initiative of inviting 50,000 young Americans to China on exchange and student programs in the next 5 years. The Chinese side has been working on it actively. About 14,000 young Americans up to now have been to China as visitors or students on this initiative. We welcome more young Americans to participate in the initiative and visit China. Giant pandas, Baoli and Qingbao, will meet the public at the National Zoo here next month, early next year. Though they don't speak Chinese or English, their presence here will help strengthen the tie of a friendship between our two countries. The Chinese side has noticed that the U.S. Department of State has downgraded the China travel advisory to level 2. We believe that it will encourage more Americans to visit China. And of course, we believe that more barriers should be removed between our two countries, and the two sides to take measures to consolidate the public basis of our bilateral relations. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, to China and the United States, respective success is an opportunity, not a challenge. Despite many uncertainties in the global economy, the fundamentals sustaining China's long-term growth have not changed and will not change. There are plenty of highlights to look at. The Chinese economy grew at 4.8% in the first 3 quarters this year, among the best of major economies. We have confidence to fulfill this year's annual growth goal. The Chinese economy now has higher quality as well as big quantity. It has registered a 2-digit increase in high-tech industry, investment, and green industry. I have some figures here. A 34.5% increase in aviation, spacecraft, and equipment manufacturing investment, and a 33.4% increase in the output of industrial robots. So pro-growth policies are delivering results. October saw marked increase in retail sales of consumer products and import and export of goods. The 70,000 plus American companies in China have earned over $600 billion in their annual sales revenue. Launching a trade war and imposing tariff hikes only close off the market and lose the opportunity. The Chinese government always welcomes the American companies to invest, to grow, and to prosper in China. To conclude, I want to emphasize that to develop a sound China-U.S. relationship, it requires efforts from both countries, just like it takes two to tango. China is ready, and we hope the U.S. will be getting aboard very soon. To start with a new journey to explore a right way for major countries to get along with each other, a basic fact and common sense approach need to be adopted. That means to have dialogues and discussions based on basic facts instead of accusations and false narratives, to apply common sense instead of sentiments, to observe China and U.S. relationship. So I hope and believe that today's event will help to achieve that end. Thank you all for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Minister Cho, you've given us a very comprehensive assessment of the current state of the relationship between Beijing and Washington. I come back to the question which I asked a bit prematurely. Looking forward, about a month from now, to the Trump administration, what are your views given the early talk of enhanced tariffs, trade restrictions, the sense that the relationship on the economic side will be facing new challenges, perhaps? What is the initial reaction in advance of those potential events?
Thank you, Mr. Houlden. I think that is, the great question. And just as I said, I have been working on China-U.S. desk for the past 14 years. So I would like to offer, some perspectives at the operational level, because as the government officials, our responsibility is to implement the policies and the instructions from the leadership. But as someone who has been working on the China-U.S. desk for many years, I just want to say, of course, we have already taken notice, the words and remarks by President-elect and there will be additional 10% tariff. And of course, from the perspective of Chinese government, actually we are always open to dialogues, to negotiations with the United States, as long as the discussions and negotiations are based on the principles of equality, equity, and mutual benefits. So we are ready, actually. And of course, we understand to have those discussions and negotiations to be started, favorable conditions and favorable atmospheres must be created. And we believe that a good beginning will bring about good results. And of course, if not that a good beginning, might create more difficulties and problems, for the development of China-U.S. relations in the early times of the new administration. So we hope that both sides could, find some time to communicate with each other and then to find a constructive solution to the trade disputes.
Thank you very much. Before shifting to audience questions, I have one other question to put to you, Minister Cho. It appears there's a bipartisan consensus in the United States to increase U.S. military presence in the Western Pacific, partly through new alliances such as AUKUS, sometimes through bilateral relationships with individual countries such as Philippines. What is the general Chinese reaction to these developments going forward? And it's my impression that this will not cease with the new administration. Please.
Thank you. As it relates to the U.S. alliance network, we believe that the U.S. alliance, of course, is a product of the Cold War, but of course it is a fact, and we acknowledge that fact. And we believe that the U.S. could make full use of its alliance network to contribute to the world peace and stability and prosperity. And that's why we follow closely on the development of the Quartz and of the AUKUS. And we hope that this development of the new mechanisms, they could play a constructive role and not against a certain third party. And we just want to see that the U.S. Could exercise restraint in sending more ships and military aircrafts, into the region, because it increases the risks of a potential, even collision. I think we had some precedent, many years ago. So that's why, we always urge our U.S. counterparts, we would like to work with the U.S. and we acknowledge your alliance network in the region, but we can do something good. We can provide public good, for the region. And we believe that if the two militaries, they can do some joint, military exercise, in the tsunami relief or something, fighting pirates, I believe it will be welcomed, by the countries across the region. And that is something, we are looking at.
Thank you. I think we have time for a couple of brief questions. Can I invite, if you could go to the standing mic, possibly. There's a standing mic over there, and just identify yourself to the audience, and please.
Minister Cho, thank you so much for what was a very articulate explanation of China's policy. We saw yesterday an extraordinary offer by President-elect Trump inviting Xi Jinping to attend the inauguration, President-elect Trump's inauguration, which is virtually unprecedented in American history. You mentioned in your remarks how important it is to get off to a good start. How does China plan to react to this? Will Xi Jinping come? Will China send a senior level delegation? If so, who?
Thank you. I think that is one of the most challenging, maybe the most challenging question I have today. But to be frank, I can only say from that report, it demonstrates the significance of the, communications between the two sides at various levels, even at the presidential levels. I will not say, of course, I can follow my U.S. colleagues' practice. I will not confirm and I will not deny, but and we just hope that we are open to the communications, and if that report is real, it shows that the president-elect's transitional team attach great importance, to the working relations between the two presidents and between Chinese government and the transitional teams. I think that is a welcome signal, and we're looking forward, to working not only with the transitional team and of course the Biden administration, because we know, there is only one president, at one time. So that is our goal, to make this relationship, have a smooth transition, and then early next year we can have a good start. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Cho. You're off to a swift start in dealing with that question. Could I ask the lady if you identify yourself and pose your question, please?
Hi, good morning. My name is Claire. I'm a China-Russia analyst for Jane's. Quick question on the developments in Syria. How does China plan to interact with the interim government, and how do you see China and the United States being able to cooperate with each other to ensure security and autonomy for the Syrian people? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we follow closely the development of the situation in Syria. Actually, our friendship with Syria, of course, face all Syrian peoples. And now we would like, the relevant sides in Syria, they could settle down and find a, resolution acceptable to the all sides in Syria, and to, work on a better future for Syrian people. And that is something, we would like to work with Syria. And of course, in the region, we believe that there are already many, turbulences, and China's position has always been consistent and clear. And we are ready, to offer assistance, within our limits. And our sincere, hope is that to work with the regional players to contribute to the peace and stability and the development in the region. And of course, we have our own way, and that is to make friends as many as possible, and then to have, as much cooperation as possible, and then to encourage, relevant parties to some conflict, to find a solution through peaceful negotiation. Because we believe that conflicts and confrontation do not serve anyone's interests, and it will only increase dangers and risks. So that's why the philosophy of China's, diplomacy, and we hope that we will continue to play that role. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This gentleman, if you could identify yourself and pose a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Dong Huiyu with China Review News Agency of Hong Kong. And Mr. Chu, you emphasize the importance of the communication between China and Trump's team. So I wonder if right now China has any channel to communicate with Trump's team, and if the communication has been ongoing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that is a follow-up question to Mr. Hollins. And you see, after the election, our president has already sent a congratulatory letter to President-elect to congratulate him on his election. And during that letter, our president has made our position our position on the China's policy very clear, and I think that is consistent. And right now, we understand, both sides, the Chinese government and the president-elect's transitional teams, acknowledge the importance of, keeping the communication channel open. And right now, I have, no specific details, I can share with you, but we think that to have this very important relationship, on a solid start, our messages, have already been, conveyed to the American public. You see, during the presidential summit in Lima, actually our president held a very constructive meeting with President Biden. And during the media readout, you can see President Xi has drawn 7 experiences from the past 45 years of China-US diplomatic relations. I think that is something, our side want to, speak to the US public. That is to see our position has not changed at all. And we want to have a stable, healthy, and sustainable relations with the US. And that is our goal, and we are, committed to working on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have another question. This is not new to the bilateral relationship, question of Taiwan. It goes back over half a century. What would be, or what will be, Beijing's reaction to potential from the Trump administration of even closer ties with Taiwan? Questions of high-level visits, arms sales. What is your take on the cusp of that new administration vis-a-vis the Taiwan question?
And the Taiwan question, actually, we have been, discussing with our U.S. counterparts for many, many years, even before, the diplomatic relations. And the question is still there. And I have to admit, it's getting worse. And of course, the U.S. has the one China policy. And I heard from some of my, U.S. colleagues, the U.S. one China policy is different from China's one China principle. Okay, you can see there are 3 words, but 2 of them are the same. That is one China. So no matter it is one China principle or it's one China policy, one China is the same. And one China, what's the meaning of the one China? Actually, the meaning is very simple. There is only one China in the world, and the government of PRC is the sole legal government representing the whole China, and Taiwan is a part of China. And I believe that the US has already made a political commitment that the US will only develop unofficial relations with Taiwan. But history has demonstrated and showed that the US policy, towards Taiwan has actually, been not conducive to the peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits. So that's why we have been, making representations with our US colleagues. And, just for your reference, actually, I believe that our US colleagues, they are much familiar with our talking points. And they know everything I'm going to say. They know every position, we have on the issue of Taiwan. But we have to reiterate, because we believe that this question is the core of the core interests of China, and it is the political foundation of China-US relations. If this red line is to be breached, the relationship will suffer a lot. So that's why, we argue with our US counterparts many, many times. And of course, in the future, we will still, to make our position clear to our US counterparts, that we hope that the US will abide by one China principle and the 3 joint China-US communiques, and to stop elevating the substantial relations with Taiwan, to stop arms sales to Taiwan, and to stop promoting international space for Taiwan. And that is the only way to maintain peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. And we have acknowledged that this current administration has made it very clear the US does not support Taiwan independence. We hope that the US administration will match the words with actions.
Thank you, Mr. Cho. We have time for one quick short question. Please identify yourself.
Yes, hi, my name is Chris Cow from Georgetown University. I wanted to ask, as we draw to the close of the Biden administration and we examine the policies and the rhetoric during the past 4 years, I'm curious to hear the embassy's views on the administration as a whole, whether it's the policies or the rhetoric, whether the embassy sees this administration as a return to more of a normal relation and dialogue between the U.S. and China, or whether you see it as a continuation of the Trump administration's exacerbation of the relations. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that is a very good question. Actually, on President Biden's policy on China, of course, we have seen for the past 4 years this relationship, under the steward of the two presidents, and based on the efforts from the two teams, this relationship as a whole maintained, stable. Of course, we have, many arguments and many differences and many challenges. We still believe that there are some principles, already acknowledged by the two sides. The two teams have already held discussions on the principles, all the guidance on how to develop this very important relationship, such as mutual respect, non-conflict, and adherence to UN Charter, and etc. I think there are 7-point principles. So we hope that we have made some progress in some areas, such as addressing the challenge of climate change and address the fentanyl crisis in the United States. And the two sides have cooperations on many other issues, such as illegal immigrants. So we believe that there are many other areas for the two countries to explore further cooperation. But at the meantime, we have seen that, on the issue of Taiwan and on the issue of export controls, this current administration has taken more measures, to contain China. And it hurts China's development rights. And that is something, of course, we strongly opposed to. And we just hope that that's why, every time during our discussion with our U.S. counterparts, we emphasize the U.S. should, have a right perception of China and the China-U.S. relations. And in my own words, actually, I just want to say, actually, China is not a challenge to the United States. Instead, it's an opportunity. And China is not a rival. Instead, it is a partner to the US. And China is not the problem to the US. Rather, it is an answer to the US. And we would like, to work with the US and on many, issues of common interests. And we acknowledge there are many challenges ahead, but it is our sincere hope that the two sides will have solid and constructive discussions based on solid, simple facts. Because I have been, as I said, making demarches, represented so many times on many issues. Now the problem is the two sides even cannot reach consensus on basic facts. So that's why, we will spend even 1 or 2 hours arguing what is the basic facts. So we hope that, the two sides, maybe from track 2, from the academia, we can sort out all those basic facts, issue after issue. Then, the two governments can have substantial dialogues and discussions to explore a right way for the two countries to get along with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cho. Please join me in thanking Minister Cho for his kind and generous time with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Golden, as well. Thank you, Minister Chu, for sharing a lot of key issues that we're going to discuss in the coming 4 panels. And thank you, Professor Houlden, for facilitating the dialogue. Thank you very much. So we're going to, please. So we're going to take a very quick 10 minutes break before we move on to the first panel, Geopolitics and Security, which is going to be chaired by Dr. Liu Yawei from Carter Center. Dr. Liu is also a key member of ICAS Advisory Board. So we'll be back in about 10 minutes.